So, this is Bob Coppedge and CEO of Simplex-IT. I'd like to welcome you all to our monthly Office 365. I guess we started a new series of webinars. We've been doing a few of them that is not only in Office 365, but it is on the administrative side of Office 365. So we've done about 3 or 4 of them, and so far they have been reasonably well received, so we're going to keep doing those. So, thank you all for joining us. And I am muting everybody except me, which my wife is glad I don't do that. But in any case, if you have any questions, go ahead and just text. And feel free to interject questions, comments, thoughts, anything during the meeting. This is being recorded, and it will be up on YouTube probably by no later than Monday. So, okay. Again, welcome to the webinar, and let's see how things go. And I got to mute. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about specifically is OneDrive for Business. And first I got to give you the NASCAR slide. We are a managed service provider. We also work a lot with what we call the hybrid IT model, which is where organizations already have their IT staff. We work to support, augment, whatever. We just recently got a MSP Mentor 501, or the top MSP, 501 MSPs in the world through MSP Mentor. We were also recognized late last year by Case Weatherhead, so we like those awards, blah, blah, blah. A couple things coming up. Obviously, we have this one going on right now. We also have our annual picnic, which if you're in Northeast Ohio, which I believe will be August 9th, whatever that Wednesday is. And then we haven't figured out the date yet, but our next administrative webinar for Office 365 will actually be on the administrative roles in Office 365. Too often, I think, especially for larger organizations, people set up you're the global admin or you're not, and there's a lot of other admin roles that can be used. So that will be our August topic. So let's go right into this. Okay, for those of you who have not heard me speak before or whatever, I am a condescending, arrogant, I'm so-and-so, I'm not terribly subtle, and I'm rather opinionated. So don't expect to hear a marketing pitch from Microsoft, and also don't expect to hear nothing but attacks to the product. It's good and it's bad. But a couple caveats. Number one, we are talking about OneDrive for Business, not OneDrive. OneDrive is the personal, the file sharing tool that is included with all Microsoft accounts and has specific file limit or size limitations, all that good fun stuff. We're talking about OneDrive for Business. I will refer to it as simply OneDrive throughout this event, but I'm talking OneDrive for Business. Second is Microsoft does not implement things for everybody at the same time. This admin portal was, for all purposes, put out. They started seeing it in December of last year. By this time, everyone should have access to it, but I think there are still some, especially if you've had a 365 tenant for a while, you may still not have access to this admin portal. Third, Microsoft has a lousy track record of communicating statuses of products and releases. They're getting better, and actually this is going to be one of the topics in a month or so. There are some resources that you can use that will give you heads up on when Microsoft is putting out releases and updates and all of that kind of thing. But when they do, don't necessarily assume that your tenant, your 365 area, will be or won't be included, because there's rhyme or reasons on that. And we, as a Microsoft 365 Cloud Champion, Tier 1, I still don't know what that means, we don't actually get early views of these things. So we're in the same boat as everybody else. So, and then this is a 1.0 admin portal. One of our biggest complaints and about OneDrive for Business has been the lack of centralized management tools. That has always been, whenever you're talking about an organization, I don't care how large or how small your organization is, if you are looking to have some level, some top level of control and management of the resources, you need to have an admin portal. OneDrive for Business, there were 2 huge problems with OneDrive for Business. One was the lack of top level management of the product in terms of the users, what they can or can't do, and the second was the desktop tool was just way too volatile, especially in terms of large numbers of files and large deltas. They have redone the tool. It is much better. It is, however, it still has some issues, and we'll talk about that. So those are some of the caveats. Next one, OneDrive is not a legitimate backup strategy for a couple of reasons. But I've heard, especially when we talk to companies who are interested in using OneDrive, a combination of OneDrive for Business and SharePoint Online as a replacement for their file server for smaller organizations, especially if they're coming from an SBS environment. This is not a legitimate backup strategy as far as using desktops and the like. You do not have as clear-cut recovery capabilities. You do not have as clear-cut of historicals. If you get, let's say you get hit with a ransomware and your data gets encrypted, guess what? The data in OneDrive for Business gets encrypted because it's doing real-time synchronization. And there's all sorts of nuances to that. There's all sorts of small things. Don't want to go too far into that, but just to let you know on that. Okay. Let's go into it. Real quick overview of OneDrive for Business. And by the way, again, anybody have any questions, just add them in the chat, and we'll handle those as quickly as possible. So what I've called OneDrive for Business is Dropbox on steroids, and this is one where I need to be a little bit clear here for myself as well as for everybody here, is that all of the file sharing tools have, or almost all of them, have a consumer version and a commercial version. And Dropbox is no exception. So Dropbox has their version, which is a higher level of availability, control management, just like OneDrive does. But for all purposes, it's better known than OneDrive, certainly. OneDrive for Business is a file sharing and collaboration tool or service. It's included in most Office 365 plans. Primarily, the files are stored in Microsoft's 365 cloud, and you can then choose by using the clients, which there's for Mac devices, Android devices, Windows devices. You can then synchronize portions based on folders or all of the data that you're storing in your Office 365 OneDrive for Business account to your desktop or devices. And you can then work on them locally, so you can work on them online, offline. They synchronize. Life is good. So it allows you to sync and share files between your own devices. You can put it on as many devices as you'd like. Also, you can then sync and share files between people within your organization, which is very easy. And you can also with people outside of your organization, which is relatively easy. Right? And then the files that you're synchronizing can be either OneDrive for Business files or SharePoint Online files. And you can actually get into hybrid scenarios where you're actually using your SharePoint for your location, all that. But not going to get into that now. If you haven't, you really should upgrade to the latest SharePoint tool. OneDrive for Business client. Reason being, it fixes a lot of the problems that have been there for a long time. So, okay. I'm not seeing any questions there. So what have they added? And by the way, most of this webinar is going to be actually going through the portal. So really they've created some external access for SharePoint and OneDrive files. So there's the sharing tab, then there's the sync, what you can do, what can or can't be synced, default storage retention values, device access, so you can actually limit some of the things, and then compliance and notifications. These are all the things that have been added, and we're going to talk about how, especially when you look at retention rules, the DLP, data loss prevention, and the e-discovery, you're going to see, if you've played with this stuff at all, you're going to see a great similarity between the tools available for OneDrive for Business and the tools that are available and that have been available for email, especially when you're looking to do discovery. So what that means is that if you are looking to do a discovery, let's say you want to find all of the information that's been bantered about dealing with this particular topic or to this particular user or using these particular words, not only can you go and search your email and everybody's emails within the organization, but you can also start searching the OneDrive file structures as well, which is really cool if that's the way that you're sharing files with your not only within your organization but with customers and the like. So it's nice to have that functionality. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions yet, so cool. So you get to it one of two ways. You can either go to it directly with admin.onedrive.com, or you can go to it with the normal portal.office.com. Either way, you log in with your credentials. And what you get, if you log in, if you log into the traditional portal down here in the lower left, and this is the quote-unquote new portal that's been being rolled out for the last several months. So if yours doesn't look quite the same, and again, I'm assuming that you all have admin rights to your 365 tenant. Otherwise, it's a very short trip. So you have this option down here, which is admin centers. Now, your mileage and your picture may vary because it not only depends, so you've got Exchange, your Skype for Business, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Yammer, but you also got Power Apps. Now we're using Flow. We've got active Azure AD, Intune if we wanted, security and compliance. So there's new ones that are being added, and some of them are added because we've quote-unquote signed up for some of these additional pieces parts. We did a webinar, I think 3 months ago. We called it the Red-Headed Stepchildren of Office 365, where we talked about products like Flow, some of the new guys. If we hit the OneDrive, we actually get this, which is the OneDrive Admin Center. And they even say here we'll be adding reports and other features soon. This hasn't really changed since December. So we're talking about Microsoft's definition of soon. And you can send feedback. But beyond that, we just have these 6 items, which were in the PowerPoint slides. So let's dive into them. So first of all, we get into the sharing. Now, sharing, when we talk about sharing, we're really talking about the whole collaboration concepts and the like. So to start with, we go with, I don't want these messages. Do we want, and notice how we're splitting this. Do we want users, and these are corporate, this tenant wide. So whoever is involved, whoever is in 365 and OneDrive, we can specify whether they could only to existing external users, or there's a sign-in, new and existing external sign-in. Oh, go away. Anyone including new and existing external users with a sign-in required, or only existing external users. Now, again, we're talking about outside of your organization. Within your organization, you use the 365 to set up who has access to things. The same thing for the OneDrive content. And again, OneDrive for Business. Only existing external users, there's a sign-in. New and existing external, there's a sign-in required, or anyone including anonymous. So as you consider, you've got the whole concept of people have to decide, or you have to decide, whether or not you want to add that additional burden of the sign-in versus the anonymous. The anonymous, hey, here's your link, go ahead and click, you've got it. Part of it is honestly when you're talking with your customers or your vendors or whoever it is that you're sharing with, how important is it to maintain the security of that information, and how lazy are they on the other side? And then what are the default links? Default sharing links, Is it direct? Only people who already have explicit permission. Internal, only people in the organization, or it's an anonymous, anyone with a link. Also, and this I think is cool. Links expire within how many days? I'll be honest, we don't use OneDrive for Business for sharing our external files, and I'll explain why later on. But if I were, I would definitely put the links that expire. I would give them 60 days, 90 days, something along those lines. And that's simply from the standpoint of you can run into those situations where the data is there for way too long and it's available for too long. And what's the default ability? View only or view and edit, and view only, view, edit, and upload, because they add additional files. And keep in mind, this is especially true if you're going to talk to your management. When you specify, because people will say, I don't want them to have the ability to, I don't want them to be able to change, I don't want to be able to delete files, add files, whatever, is with these kind of tools, as is, they can still open up that document. If you only say view, if we essentially say view only, they can still open up the file and save it somewhere else. There's really not a file level of protection for this. All right, and there are ways to do that, and that might be another topic at some point, but not this, and not this simple of a product. We can also limit it by domain. So we can specify which domains can the users be coming from in terms of who's able to share, who's able to have access to this document or these documents. And again, this is throughout, this is for your entire tenant, for all of your 365 users. And we can also specify that external users, so we're going to send them a sharing invitation, and we can specify that they have to use the same account. Excuse me if I sneeze. Excuse me. That they have to use the same account, which basically helps limit the number of people that are being, someone's taking the invitations or the sharing and send them to somebody else. And do we let external users share items they don't own? So we have some kind of a top level control here, which is kind of nice. Any questions on this? I'm going to take that as a no. And this is one that has taken time. Sometimes this takes a while to populate for some reason. So for this one, use these settings control syncing of files. First of all, you've got the download the sync client, which tells you right there, because if you go, if the end user logs onto the portal, they can download the client very easily. But the fact that here in the admin site, they have the download the client here for you, just tells you how much trouble they're having getting end users to download the client themselves. This is also very important. Fix sync problems. The OneDrive for Business client is not, it's better than it used to be, but it is not the best at all, in my opinion, in terms of reporting problems. In other words, if there are challenges, and I guarantee you it has them, if there are challenges that the OneDrive for Business client has in terms of collisions, in terms of just it gets hosed, which it does, it doesn't really tell you how what the problem is. You, the manager, still doesn't do that very well, and it also makes it's kind of a pain in the tuchus to fix it. Sometimes you have to clear the whole synchronization out. You have to clear the cache out. You have to do things. So I would use this link here because I am hoping that Microsoft will be pretty consistent as when they update it, they will update this link to the latest document. So the fix sync problems. This document will go into, hey, if you see what version are you running, Here are some common things to try. It's not a bad document at all. And again, one of the problems I've had historically with OneDrive and OneDrive for Business, actually much more OneDrive for Business, is the sync tool would break. And I will also say that the sync tool, for the most part, when it broke on SharePoint. And usually for SharePoint libraries that had a lot of files. Not necessarily big files, but just the number of files. That was the biggest vulnerability we've seen. The new sync tool is much, much better, but I still see problems. So, do we show the sync button on the OneDrive website? In other words, do we want our end users to use that tool to be able to sync to their desktops? And do we only want to allow syncing to specific domains? So I only want the employees that are part of my network, I only want them to be syncing to PCs that are part of that network's domains. And then what extensions? I want to block. I don't want, and there are some there are a number of them that are blocked already. Database files are notorious. They're just not a good thing to synchronize. Other files, you may not want people synchronizing videos or large graphic files or the like. So, any questions on sync? Okay. Storage. Default storage, everybody gets a terabyte, so that's that. There's a link for what's the maximum. That does change. That does change. So keep an eye on that, should that ever be needed. But this is also interesting. Days to retain files in OneDrive after a user account is marked for deletion. Now remember that if you delete a 365 account, it essentially stays in the recoverable mode for about 30 days. What do you want to do for the OneDrive files as well? Can you get more than 1 gig? It is always changing. They recently are in the process. So here you go. If you have E3, 4, or 5, you can increase the default up to 5 terabytes. But they have actually increased they're in the process of doubling the mailbox size. They started doing that in the beginning of the year. So they will do the same thing here as well, I am sure. So if you've got the enterprise plans or the specific OneDrive for Business Plan 2 or SharePoint Online Plan 2, you can get more. Okay. I got a question and I answered it. Yay. So device access. Allow only, we want to block to specific IP address. Why will we do that? We're using this locally to this particular business location or multiple business locations. So we're not really going with that mobile workforce concept. Same thing, if we got device-based restrictions, don't let them. Okay. And then mobile application management. You can actually deploy a policy that blocks taking screenshots for Android, that requires an app passcode, blocks the OneDrive or SharePoint files and other apps, encrypt it when it's locked, yada, yada, yada. So you can actually, and don't take this as a replacement for mobile device management, but you can actually put some restrictions as far as what apps can or can't do. Okay. So, compliance. You can create, let's take a look at a couple of these. So you can create, now this is becoming more and more similar to the email pieces parts. So I can go over to eDiscovery, and now they're calling it case management and the like. And I can go ahead, create a case. Now there's some additional requirements that you have to give people to be able to look at these. So they might have global access to compliance cases. They'll be able to see all of them. Who should have access to this case? And in this particular case, what are we doing? Am I putting items on hold? I'm going to create a search. So now, it used to be you did the search over here, you did the hold over here, you did some exports here, members, the like. Now, they're putting them all together under one term, and that is case. So that's an enhancement or a change that's happening both on the email side as well as the OneDrive. Would you guys be interested in a webinar specifically about the eDiscovery? Because it's pretty powerful. Would that be of interest? Okay. I'm going to say that's a yes. I got 4 votes out of 12. Cool. Data loss prevention policies. If we want to, we can create a policy. And there are a number of templates based on financial, PCI, FTC consumer, HIPAA. So it will go through and create the DLPs, which essentially is a way to prevent or protect the data from being inadvertently shared or removed. You name it, you location, settings, you review it, and then implement it. So it's fairly straightforward and fairly simple. I'm going to assume that this would also be a topic you'd like to see. Same thing for retention. Okay, Josh, that's just showing off with the upper cases and a couple exclamation points. That's no. Cool. We could also create, again, retention, preservation. If you'll notice, same thing as email. We're able to do kind of a sharing there. And this, we've got the alerts. And this is one of the things where I was never overly crazy about the alerts. Yeah, man. But now I can create an alert for when files were accessed, discarded, checked out, moved, restored, all of this. Okay, so, and you'll notice I can do it for Exchange mailbox activities as well. So you'll see that these are, again, there's this tightening of the controls and management between the email side and the OneDrive for Business side. So we can create alerts that are customized to particular activities or particular acts and have those sent out. And then finally, notifications. And notice these go to users when OneDrive files are shared with them, when other users invite additional external users to shared files. So this kind of goes to users. So you're emailing to OneDrive owners when these events happen. So this is a really, really quick overview of the administrative tools that are available. But they're either pretty self-explanatory or they go much deeper than we're going to have in 30 minutes, and we're actually almost running out of time. So one other thing I want to do, I want to show you the bad. I want to talk a little bit about the bad stuff. And I want to stress it's still tons better than it used to be. I still wish it had file server sync, meaning that for everybody who's local, we have a file server, and we're going to synchronize the file server up to the cloud, the file shares that are on the file server. So everybody here in the office uses the file server with the 1 gigabit connectivity, and everybody else uses the client. That would be really nice. You can sort of do it by putting OneDrive for Business on the server, but it's not made to do that. The second would be collision resolution, when you have either two users or it's a user on the same device and you have versions colliding with updates. It kind of gives you an idea of the fact that the collision happened, but it doesn't really help you and facilitate figuring out who stays. Remote wipe, especially this is for former employees, folks who are no longer with the organization. It's there, it's getting better, but you still need a mobile device management tool to really do that well. Mass revision rollback. This is a godsend. This is wonderful for the ransomware. If you could basically say, oh, look, we got hit by ransomware at 3 o'clock this afternoon. I want to roll all the OneDrive to 2:45 or 2:55 p.m. And it will roll back both in the cloud and on the clients to that particular time. And then bandwidth throttling, although that's much more important when there's a file server sync. And the reason being for bandwidth throttling, this is especially true if you've got a site with a lot of OneDrive for Business users. If I make a change to a file, this is especially on a Sharepoint site, that is used in SharePoint Online, it has to upload to 365, and then it downloads to all the people who are subscribing or synchronizing that particular folder, which, if they're all in that office, you're getting a ton of downloads that are happening simultaneously. Those are some of the things. Whenever we're talking with a client that is really looking, they don't want the level of sophistication that SharePoint Online requires, or they have the issues of the limit of number of files they can synchronize, and yet they want to have a much higher, a tighter security or control than OneDrive for Business gets. We like the product called Anchor, which is from eFolder, that handles all of these plus some other issues as well. And the reporting, there's a lot more reporting and all that kind of thing. But OneDrive for Business took care of probably about 30 to 40% of the real problems that we've had with it, with these, both the new client release and plus this admin portal. And I have no reason to believe that there aren't more improvements that are coming up. So I hate to say it, but that's it.